What is up, guys? It's Christian Professional Dad, and I'm here with another night video. And in this video, I'm going to be answering a question that was emailed to me last night. Now, when I do this video, the person that sent that email is going to know who they are, and they're going to know what question I'm talking about. Actually, I'm going to tell you what the question is here in just a second. But before I do, I want to apologize to that person and to a few other people who have sent me some emails in the last day or so that I have not gotten back to. There's an old saying that I used to hear a lot, that our kids have a dog in the fight, but they don't get a vote. So it's up to us to make the best vote for them. So the last few days, 4 or 5 days, I have literally put my phone down, and I have not been dedicating a lot of time to my phone, other than when I pick it up to make a video here and there, when I got a few minutes, or if I do a really quick short that just takes a couple minutes, or if I can find a few minutes when all the chaos lulls and I can dedicate to answering some comments real quick. I will get back to all the emails. I will get back onto Discord and stuff like that as soon as I can. But remember, like I said, kids have a dog in the fight. They don't have a vote. It's up to us to make the best vote for them. And I am trying to make the best vote for my kids and my family. And there's just some stuff going on. Just little man's got some issues and just upset and sad about a few things, and I understand. So I'm just working with him and spending my time with the boys, because that's what matters. So I apologize, but I will get back to you guys. But in the meantime, I do still want to keep making videos when I can and keep putting out content. Now, before I get to that question and answering that question, I want to show you a few things that came in recently. And like I always say, if it comes in one door, it's going back out the other in a giveaway. Now, Rooster emailed me a while back. To be perfectly honest, Rooster, I forgot about that daggone email. I had told a few people that this was coming, but since then I completely forgot. And thank you very much, because this thing is fantastic. And it is a leather wallet that Rooster handmade. Now, he makes some handmade leather goods in his off time. I'm sure he sells some. He does it as a hobby, sends some out to family and friends, different things like that. But this is a handmade leather EDC wallet, a minimalist wallet. It's got the snap up here. Now, it does have the ring, so you can put a lanyard through it or whatever. It's got the cash folder right here, and it's got the card holder right there. Now, you might notice that it's similar to another wallet or other wallets that are on the market right now. That's okay. There's a ton of brands right now on the market that are all similar to each other. They're all doing the same daggone thing. Some of them are making better quality than others. But I'm going to tell you right now, this one is really good quality. To do it part-time, just as a hobby, Rooster, you're fantastic, buddy. You got some serious skills. I appreciate this big time. Email me if you are opposed to this, but like I said, I think you already knew this. I will be giving this away in a giveaway this Tuesday when we give away the McNeese. This will be one of the items that I give away. I'm absolutely stoked about this, because this wallet is awesome and somebody's going to like this wallet. To compare, I paid $70 for the Hitchhiker wallet. Now, this thing's pretty daggone nice. I mean, this is definitely a nice wallet. So I don't know what this thing would retail for on the open market. I wouldn't want to put a value on it or anything like that. It is what it is. The market is whatever it will pay. But I know what I would pay for this, and this is a nice daggone wallet. A nice one. And like I said, I already paid $70 for the Hitchhiker. So what would I pay for one of these? This is a great wallet, and this is going out. Now, Mr. Malik also sent me in this, and I can't remember. I get so many emails in, I can't remember if we talked about this or not. I don't think we did. Actually, we had to, because he had my address to send this to me. But this is a chef's knife, a kitchen knife that he made and he sent to me. And I'm assuming that he made this. This is a handmade chef's knife. It's extremely razor blade sharp. Let me pick up a piece of paper right here. I mean, this thing is, it's me, not the knife. This thing is a razor blade. Very, very sharp. That's just a bad piece of paper, dirty and beat up. I gotta do a better job about keeping paper on the table, guys. I apologize. But this isn't, it's a nice knife to be handmade. Scales are dyed, 3 pins, full tang. Just a nice chef's knife. I don't know what steel he made this out of. I'm assuming that this is probably 1095. I'm assuming something like that, but because it was oiled down pretty good when it got here. So this will also be going out in a future giveaway, and it does come with a leather sheath. So this will be going out as well. Thank you for this knife. I greatly appreciate that. I just cut that leather strap. That's how sharp this daggone blade is. I just sliced right through that leather strap. Holy smokes. I apologize to the person that's getting this. Oops. This is very sharp, but it's a nice knife, and this will be going out in a video giveaway. This will not be this Tuesday. This will be in a future one. But there you go. And one other question I wanted to answer, somebody emailed me talking about some knives and stuff, and I told them that I had made some knives, handmade knives, whenever I was out camping. You guys already know, I've told you a dozen million times. That made no sense, a dozen million. But I told you a lot of times that I camped for a few years. I spent my time in tents and backpacking and stuff like that. I financially could afford it at the time, and I wanted to just enjoy the nature and the outdoors and camping and primitive lifestyles and minimalist lifestyle. And I made some knives with some hand tools, and they have been in a daggone tote of camping supplies in a closet for a long time, and they're made out of 1095. So you can imagine what they look like right now, because they haven't been oiled in years. And I'm going to show you really quick. I'm just going to give you a really quick run through. I'm not going to actually show you. I'm just going to hold them up, put them back down, because they need to be cleaned up really bad. But I did promise you that I would show you these, but I will show them in a future video. I'll get them cleaned up and sanded again and redone. Remember, I don't make knives professionally. I just done these in the woods with some hand tools and a metal saw and a lot of I got the materials and stuff, and a handsaw and sandpaper, stuff like that. So I made this one right here. It is definitely needing to be sanded down and oiled again. It is just a cool little knife, double edge. It's got jimping on top. I made this one right here. This is more of a hunter style. Again, the blades are extremely dirty and rusty, where they have been in a tote for years, but I made these things by hand, and they are still, after all this time, a razor blade. Sanded down, pins through them, and then I made a massive chopper. I made a whole bunch more, but I gave them away and stuff. I used to make knives a lot. This was a chopper, and I did use these knives a lot. I'll get them cleaned up. I might even give them away. I don't know. If they need to be cleaned up, those was all made by me with hand tools. Real easy to do, and they used to look really daggone nice when they was new and they was oiled and stuff. But I had 1095 blade steel. I heat treated them and all the other stuff, and tempered them, all that good stuff. So did it all. But all right, so here you go. Let's get on to the actual topic at hand. I'm 8 minutes in. Is that saying 9 minutes? I'm 9 minutes in, guys. All right, so I was emailed a question that was asked, what's with the button locks? Like, why is there so many different types of button locks? I don't understand what all the different button locks are. And they didn't want to ask in comments because they thought it might be a question that people, would take for granted or not understand how they wouldn't. Listen, let me tell you, that my same concept for the emails is the same concept as is for comments. You can ask me anything because I'm still new, and there was not a time too long ago when I did not understand what a top liner lock was. Seems pretty common sense and simple, but I didn't understand. I did not understand the compression lock or the difference. I remember when I first reviewed the Mannix 2, I thought it was an axis lock. And people had to tell me in the comments that's not an axis lock. I'll tell you in a second. So there are a lot of different styles, and it can be confusing. You got the Vancor lock with the Vosteed shilling cutter, which is similar to a push button lock. There's so many different ones. So I can understand. Do not feel bad that you don't understand, because we all are at a certain place in our journey. And as you progress through that journey, you will learn different things. You have to learn your blade styles, whether it be a drop point, or a sheep's foot or whatever. You have to learn your different blade steels. You have to learn, your handle materials. Locking mechanisms is also in that process. So I'm going to show you a couple of different locking mechanisms. And I'm going to try to explain really quickly. These aren't in-depth explanations of the differences. This is just trying to give you a brief summary so that you can go to the actual places online and get the real detailed information that you need that will break it down for you. You can go on YouTube, not just my video. There's so many videos that will break these down and take the guts of the knife and open them up and show you how these things work, or show you cutout diagrams or animations or whatever. You can find the information out there. Okay, so first of all, you just basically got the button lock. Now the button lock is real simple. And I'm gonna try to hold this up right here. If you see, there is a round flat disc right there, and that disc holds the blade. There's a little hook on the end of this blade that grabs that disc. And then there's a small pin, I don't know if you see that pin, that goes through, that pushes it out of the way so that that knife can disengage and close. So when it opens, watch that flat disc pop back up. It pops back up. Now when you push this in, it will close back. My hands are rusty from those daggone knives. I apologize, guys. So that is what that does right there. That is a button lock. It's literally a pin that pushes an actuator that holds the blade in place. Or the button is the actuator, I guess. A disc will pop up and hold that knife in place. When you take that, push that through, it actuates that pin, and boom, it drops. Pretty simple. Pretty straightforward. Now, what other types of button locks are there? Because there aren't just a regular pin button lock. Well, I'm going to show you. By the way, this is the Kaiser Assassin. This knife is awesome. This is one of my favorite Kaiser knives that I have. I don't use it that much because I have the Begleiter XL, which is just a bigger one. But for the average person, the Assassin is, every time I've had this in a 3-knife challenge or anything, it has smoked everything that it's went up against. It's 154 cm. This is an awesome knife. Green micarta handles. Fantastic knife. Okay, so next you have this right here, which is a liner lock. This is the Spartan Blades Astor. Most of you guys already know all this stuff, so you can turn off the video if you're not interested. Most of you guys already know this. This is, you know who you are that wanted to know, so I'm talking to you specifically. This is a liner lock. You know how a liner lock works. You just push that down, boom. Okay, now imagine, let me see, I've got pins in here. Not ink pens, like little pins. Got one right here. Let me get this thing out. Now imagine if they took this pin, and they drilled a hole right through there so that that pin would push that liner lock down. All you'd have to do is push that pin, and that pin would go through the hole and push that down. Now, you can't do it from the front, because guess what it's going to block? It's going to block that blade as that blade tries to close, because it can't close because there's a pin sitting there. So what they do is they reverse that liner lock to the back, but it's still just a liner lock. And they call it a top liner lock, which is what this is. So it's just a liner lock that's in there that you have a pin going through that's pushing the liner lock down. Very simple, very straightforward. It is a liner lock, but instead of going through the edge side, you're going through the spine side. It's just a liner lock, but instead of pushing it with your hands, you push it with a button. But it's a liner lock. It's a top liner lock because it is on the top spine side instead of the bottom edge side. Pretty straightforward. That is a top liner lock, button lock. Now, you also have a pivot liner lock, a push button pivot liner lock, or they can consider it a push button pivot frame lock, depending on who you're talking to. Like this Peregrine Falcon from Remet. You literally will see the liner lock right there. It's just a liner lock. And you use a pivot button that's in the pivot right there that pushes that liner lock down. It's just a liner lock, but instead of reaching through and closing it with my fingers, I'm pushing it with a button. It's the same exact concept. So we call them button locks, but really they're just liner locks with a different way to engage the liner. Pretty simple. All right. Now it does get more in depth than that. Now, with a liner lock, you have this piece of metal right here, and there's a spring in there that gives this metal tension. That's why it bends back up, and that spring, every time you push it down and let go, it'll pop back up because there's springs in there. But imagine if the steel was strong enough to where it didn't need springs. That is what the compression lock is. Looks just like a liner lock, but instead of using springs, it uses compression, which is just tension in a leaf spring. Leaf springs in the underside of a vehicle are under a vehicle because of how much strength and tension and buoyancy they have. They will always bounce back because of the strength and how they're made. This liner lock does not need a spring to bounce back because the tension from how strong the steel is that they're using is what will make it pop back up every time. So it's called a compression lock, but it's still the same concept of a liner lock. Pretty simple. So what does Spyderco do when they want to add to the compression lock and make it even better? They put a button on it. This is the same exact thing that I just showed you with the top liner lock, but instead of hitting a spring-loaded liner, you are hitting the compression lock, basically a spring lock, a spring bar that's got a lot of tension. So instead of using springs, it's a bar that's got, just like I said, a compression. The strength of the bar itself keeps it in place instead of needing extra springs to do it. So this works the same exact way. You see that compression lock in there? See how that's pushing that? Can you see that? That's all you're doing. You're using a button to push that compression lock. So it's a button lock, but it's really just a compression lock. It's a push button compression lock. So instead of reaching through there and doing it with your fingers, you just do it with the button. Very simple. They're all designed to make an easy and efficient lock mechanism more easy and efficient. Just adding to it. Now, there are pros and cons to each one. Some people think that locking mechanisms aren't very safe and secure. Well, not push button locks. Some people believe that push button locks are fantastic and they're perfectly safe. You have all different variations. The ultimate thing is you should never trust anybody else what they say. If you read in comments that people say, oh, push button locks are not safe at all and you shouldn't, listen to them. They probably have a good reason to say that. And you should definitely consider what they're saying. But ultimately, you should make the decision for yourself and try to do studies, testing, research on your own. Access locks, crossbar locks. Are they safe and secure? Some people say yes. Some people say no. You should ultimately listen to those comments, read them, consider the person saying it and how much knowledge they have, because a lot of times the stuff that people say in comments, I don't even have to do any research. Just because of who says it, I automatically know that's legit because of who says it. So, there's weight to some people's opinions. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you got to do your own research on whether or not these locks are good enough for you, are safe enough for you, are dependable and rugged enough for you. And also, what are you doing that you're going to be using a lock for? If you're going to be going out and batoning with it, you probably shouldn't be using a button lock anyways. If you're going to be using a folder at all, it should be a lockback probably, in my opinion, or a triad lock, which is just another lockback. You should be using something that's the most safe and efficient lock system. Things are made for what they're made for. You don't take, all right, I'll give you an example. When you go to the circus and you see those little bitty toy cars and they pull up and then you see 35 clowns get out and you're like, holy smokes, how did they do that? How did they get all those people in there? Now, if the average person, that's all smoke and mirrors and it's for show. They take the seats out, the guts out. There's absolutely nothing in there but a steering wheel and pedals. So they can get as much people in there as possible. But ultimately, it's only for that show. They would never drive that on the road. If you did have that on the road and you took a little car like that and you tried to load a bunch of people into it and have it as a 8 family member vehicle that's going to the grocery store and everything else, it would never work. You're using the wrong tool for the wrong job. You need something better. You need a van or an SUV or a pickup truck or whatever. Knives are the same way. Why would you use a knife that's not designed for a certain job to do that job? Use the right tools for the right job, because every job has a right tool. And that comes with wisdom and experience. All right. Now, the shilling cutter is a completely different type of button lock. It does have an access button the same way that the remet has an, I called it a pivot lock. It does have a pivot lock, I should say, the same way that the remet has a pivot lock. The difference is the remet pivot lock is actually pushing on a liner lock. That's all it's doing, is it's pushing on a liner lock. Now, this is called the Vancor lock. It still works like a push button because you are still pushing a button, so to speak. But that's it. That's the only similarities that there are. The inner guts of this is completely different. It's a 2-in-1 locking system that combines a pivot and a button with a magnetic connector and a robust lock plate. So it's using a magnetic connector and a robust lock plate together that's actuated by this pivot button. The inner guts, I can't explain that to you. I can't tell you with an animation. I can't show you any analogy on how that works. Ultimately, it's different than a liner lock. It's using a magnetic plate and or a magnetic connector and a robust lock plate. And it's actuated by this button right there on your axis, or on your, I keep saying axis, on your pivot. So completely different. So as you see, there's a lot of locks just in the button category. And it just doesn't work that way. Let's talk about crossbar locks. Crossbar locks is the same exact way. Crossbar lock is a very simple concept. The same way that at the bottom of this blade right here, there's a little hook. And on this push button right here, that flat disc comes out and hooks onto that little hook of the blade. Here, there's a bar, a flat bar right there. You can see that bar that goes across there. See that bar? That's it. It's very simple. Instead of it being a disc that engages that hook, this bar sets acrossways and that hook catches it. And you take that crossbar and pull that bar down, it disengages it so the lock can close. I know my fingers are not making much sense at all, but that's all it is. You just pull that bar down. That's all. You're just pulling the bar down. And it's letting go of that blade. When the bar is engaged, the blade is engaged, so the blade can't close. When you pull this down, it releases the blade, so the blade can close. Very simple. Very simple. It's all in concept. It seems like it's more elaborate than it really is. If it was more elaborate, it probably wouldn't work because it's too many moving parts. It's too many issues that can go wrong. The more simple, the better. You know, when you're looking at a problem, and they are, like, for instance, if somebody is looking at a murder scene or whatever, or they are looking at somebody that saw UFOs and somebody's trying to tell you what they saw in the sky. Now, I'm not saying UFOs are not real or anything like that. People that know me know my opinion about that, and that's neither here nor there. You all didn't come for that. But if somebody is talking about UFOs, if an investigator comes along, they're going to say ultimately, usually, the most simple explanation is usually the right explanation. The most simple one. Same thing with these locks. The most simple process and way to make it happen is ultimately the right one. The more complicated they are, the more issues they're going to have. It's very easy for somebody to fix a crossbar lock. It is not very easy for somebody to fix a magnetic plate or a magnetic connector with a robust locking plate, stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. So there's far more that can go wrong with this than there is that can go wrong with this. Those are other things that you got to consider. When I did the Mannix 2, I thought, because look at this. With this, you pull a bar back to disengage the blade. Well, with this, you pull it back to disengage the blade. So I thought, crossbar lock. I didn't know. I was new to these. I had never had a Mannix 2. I thought it was a crossbar lock. And I said it in the comments. And thankfully, the viewers understood exactly where I was, that my ignorance and my lack of knowledge, and that I was wanting to know, I just didn't know. So they was very kind and gracious, and they went into the comments and they said, okay, this is what it is. It's a detent ball. There's a little groove on this blade. And when you open that blade up, a little ball will slide into that groove and lock it in place. That ball is like a little detent ball fitting in a cage. And when you pull this back, you're pulling that ball back out of that groove. So it's like there's literally a groove in the blade. So when that groove goes into place, that ball slides in. And when you pull this back, you're just pulling that ball out of that groove so the blade can close. Very simple. It seems more complex than it is, but it's not. Again, the more simple they are, usually the more effective they are. The more complicated and complex they are, the more things that can go wrong. The more expensive they are, the more of a nuisance and a problem they are to fix if they do get messed up. the more issues you can have with dirt and grime getting into them and affecting the locking mechanism, which is still something you have to deal with a knife like this. You know, ultimately, a lot of times a simple lock back or different things is more efficient for certain jobs because of grime and stuff. The same way that washers and bearings inside your pivot can be affected by the job you're doing because of dirt and grime getting in there and affecting the bearings. Whereas washers can take that abuse more. Washers can deal with a lot more dirt and debris and grime than bearings can. Bearings will be messed up quick with that stuff, so you got to take it apart, you got to clean them out, you got to grease them back up. Washers can take more of that. Certain locks can as well. So that's what this lock is. Even though it seems like a crossbar lock, it is not. It is just a ball that is sliding into place. A little ball bearing slides into place in a little groove in the plate. Imagine they took the blade and they took a Dremel tool and they made a little groove right there, just a little dent. And that way, every time this closes, a ball could fit in that little dent. That's what it is. There's a dent in that corner, the back corner of that blade, and a ball is just going in there. Very simple. And the last lock I'm going to explain to you is the shark lock, because there's several different variations of the shark lock as well. All right, and the first one I'm going to show you is exactly the shark lock. This is the Demco shark lock. One of the most iconic locks there is because it's fidgety, it's secure. Demco makes some really great stuff. It's very safe and reliable. I mean, within reason for certain jobs. But again, it's fidgety, it's fun. And they've come out with a whole bunch of other locks that have a similar lock. A similar, pull it back, and it does that. Pull it back, and it does that. So what's the difference in this? Well, I'll tell you. And I write this stuff down because sometimes I can't remember it all. Both are spine actuated locks. And they have locking mechanisms, but they differ in how they engage the blade. The shark lock has a distinct protrusion that resembles a shark fin. Okay, imagine in this, there's a ball that engages into the blade. Well, in this, there's a little protrusion from the lock that looks like a shark's fin that engages the blade when it's open. And when you pull that back, that shark's fin is pulled out of the way so the blade can close. This is pretty much the same exact thing. But what they say is, and this is called the super lock. This is called the shark lock. This is called the super lock. They're basically the same concept, same thing. This is just a more streamlined and an easy way for them to make the lock. It's just more streamlined. What that means, I don't know. I don't know the guts of it. I'm assuming probably it doesn't look like a shark's fin. Maybe it looks a little different. Maybe it is a smaller protrusion. I don't know. But they work the same exact way. You pull that back and it will disengage or engage. Same way. But they are different. But the difference is subtle. You pull it back and it engages it. Same thing. Now there's one other one though that you got to consider. The cold steel engage. Now they actually made this look different, but it's the same thing with one difference. When cold steel, and I already know this because I watched this when I watched a review on this knife. Cold steel wanted to use the Demco lock, but they couldn't use the Demco anymore because Demco wasn't working with cold steel anymore. So they no longer could use the Demco lock on their stuff. They no longer had the rights, but they wanted to, but they couldn't do it legally. So they had to make a change. So what they did is on this lock, okay, this lock uses one pin, like that shark's fin, one pin that actuates, that locks it in place. A single pin, the same way there's a single pin here. One pin goes across. One pin goes across that actuates that disc. Well, in this, one disc goes across and actuates that shark's fin. In this, they have two pins. That's it. That's how they changed it to get around so that they would not be sued. They made it look a little different, and they made it a two-pin system instead of one. But ultimately, you pull it back, and it still works the same exact way. But there's two pins instead of one. At the end of the day, these explanations are not meant to be thorough and elaborate and a be-all, end-all explanation. You wanted to know why there are so many different types of button locks and what the difference with them are. And again, you know who you are. There's even more than this. I know some I just don't have and stuff. Some of the knives I don't have, but that is a basic, very basic and general rundown of what those button locks are. Trying to put that in very simple and elementary terms and explanations. I didn't do a very good job. I know that. I'm not very good at this because I'm still learning myself. But one thing that I will say more than anything is this. Nothing defeats experience. Nothing. No comment that you'll ever read. No video that you'll ever watch. No blog that you'll ever read. Nothing will defeat experience. Getting to know your knives. Getting to know which one is more durable for you when you use them, what seems more reliable, what you like better, which ones are easier for you to engage or disengage. You know, nothing defeats research. So when you don't have the time for experience, which is ultimately the best way to go, if you don't have the time to put in the experience, the next best step is research. Research is far better than comments that you will read. Far better. When you read the owner's manuals, you go online to the different manufacturers' websites and you read what they say about the locks and how they're supposed to work and what their pros and cons are, because they will tell. It never ceases to amaze me. Somebody will tell. I have read so many comments that somebody will say, "Oh, this lock failed on me when I was doing such and such," and I'm like, "Why was you doing that with that lock?" That obviously, I guarantee you, if you read the manufacturer's owner's manual and the pros and cons, they will tell you what not to do. And I guarantee you what you just listed as doing is not something you're supposed to do with that. But then you're shocked and surprised when it failed. What do you think? Does that even make sense? It's like putting a sucker down in front of my kid and saying, turning my back for 3 seconds and turning back around and being shocked that he's actually licking on the sucker. What did I expect to happen if I put a sucker in front of him? What do you expect to happen? And that's a horrible analogy. But what do you expect to happen when you do something with a knife it's not designed to do? Now, yes, there might be times where it handles just fine and you're impressed, and that makes you have a false security and confidence in something because you got away with it once. But you might not get away with it every time. So research, get experience, get to know your knives. But again, this is just a brief tutorial on the different locks that are out there. Just a few of them. There are other types of locks as well. So do some research and homework. And remember, no lock. You know what the best lock there is on a knife? The absolute best lock there is. It is undefeated as a lock. When there is no lock. That's the only way you're going to have a locking system that does not have a weak point, that doesn't have something it's not capable of. Unless you have a fixed blade in your hand, you do not have a be-all, end-all lock, folder, or locking system. You just don't. So that right there is the answer. You can do things with that you can't do with these. All right. This is a corny video. I know that. But you know who you are. Hopefully this answered the question. I will get back to you in the email, and I apologize for not emailing you back. I will get back to you. Hopefully everybody understands. Now I'm going to go back in here, hang out with the boys some more, and work through them. We have a couple appointments coming up here very soon, where we are going to be talking and discussing some stuff. So maybe, very soon, hopefully we will get over this hump, but that's neither here nor there. You guys don't want to hear about all that blah, 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 boring stuff. Remember, guys, it's not who you are on the inside. It's your actions that define you. You just have to decide how you want to be defined. And I want to be defined as a good dad. That's the only thing I really care about. I make knife videos, but my life is my kids. And I appreciate you guys being so understanding and cooperative and patient with me. Thank you. And you all know how much I appreciate you guys and care about you all as a community. Thank you. By the way, Tuesday, right around the corner, guys. 3 days away. It's going to be a big day. I appreciate you guys. I'm Chris, Young Professional Dad, and I will see you in the next knife video. Remember, I wish you all sharp knives and happy lives. Take care.